and a huge warm welcome to my guest today, Dr. Gina Gomez de la Cuesta, who I am very excited to chat to about Lego-based therapy and her company, Play Included. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Gina founded Bricks for Autism, which is now Play Included, in 2018, supported by the Cambridge Social Ventures Incubator Programme. Having studied Lego-based therapy for her PhD at Cambridge University Autism Research Centre, Gina is the co-author of the Lego-based therapy manual. She completed her doctorate in clinical psychology at the University of East Anglia and has done her PGCE teacher training. Gina continues to be involved with academic research as well as clinical practice, specialising in autism and child and adolescent mental health. She has published several academic papers on Lego-based therapy, including for the I-SOCIALISE randomised control trial. And she loves singing, cooking and travelling to Spain. Such an impressive bio. So let's jump straight into this and welcome Gina to the podcast. How are you, Gina?
I'm great. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Not at all. It's such an impressive bio. So many things that you're doing in so many wonderful areas. So I'm really looking forward to digging a bit deeper into this. So what first drew you to working with children and young people with autism?
Well, it actually stems back to my school days when I volunteered as a sixth former for a MenCat week, and we sort of looked after children who perhaps might normally get not normally get a holiday, and we sort of gave them loads of activities for a week. And one of the young people that I was principally supporting had a diagnosis of autism, quite severe autism, but she and I bonded because we both liked singing, so it was quite a nice experience, and I just got interested in that, and then decided to look at autism for my undergraduate library dissertation. So I did a lot of reading about autism then and visual thinking in autism. So so sort of, I guess, personal experiences and then academic interest, I suppose.
Wow. So what kind of got you interested in Lego-based therapy? Was this always a thing? Is this something that you've coined? Where does that come from?
So when I was just first starting out at the Autism Research Centre in Cambridge, I'd sort of was interested in like methodologies to support autistic children and researching them thoroughly at the time. So I was sort of planning on researching, I don't know, maybe ABA or the Sunrise program at the time in 2004. Those were sort of some of the main methodologies out there. It's changed a lot since then, but so I just arrived at the Autism Research Centre at the same time as a psychologist in the US, Dan Legoff, had contacted my supervisor, who was Professor Simon Baron-Cohen and Ayla Humphrey. Dan Legoff had contacted Simon to tell him about this Lego therapy or using Lego therapeutically to support autistic children in his practice. And Simon said, well, why don't you do Lego therapy for your PhD? And I said, well, that sounds great. That sounds really fun. I'll definitely do that. So I was just in the right place at the right time, really, and was lucky enough to travel to the US to meet Dan Legoff and learn about his methodologies, and then bring that back to Cambridge and run the first brick clubs in the UK as part of my PhD. So I had the library in the Autism Research Centre full of like, and children came about 6 times a week. We had 6 groups a week. It was quite full on, and they really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. So that's where this journey all started for me.
Wow. So you actually brought it over to the UK. So you're the first people in the UK to be doing this over here.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's really exciting. What an amazing moment. So for anyone who hasn't, including myself, who hasn't really heard of Lego therapy, what is it? What does it entail?
So it's really about trying to support children to feel confident in a group setting, make a few friends over a shared interest, and develop some skills in problem solving, turn taking, language and communication, regulating emotions. But it's all done through collaborative Lego play. So it's a very child-led program, and it should be very the children should have quite a say in what activities they do, what they build,
Okay.
who they build it with. But principally, the trick is for children to build together rather than by themselves. So probably the thing that people most associate it with Lego therapy is building in a three. So one child perhaps has the pieces in front of them, the Lego bricks. Another child has the instructions of how to build a set and shows and points and shares, and describes what pieces the supplier needs to find on the tray. And then the third child puts it together. So everybody's allowed to see the pictures,
Right.
all joint focusing, all helping each other out. But there is a division of labour, and you take it in turns to do those roles. But you can do it in a two, you can do it one-to-one with an adult. There's lots of kind of adaptations and changes, and you can absolutely do creative building, designing your own things. But the thing is to do it with somebody else, and then through that activity, loads of opportunities to use your social skills, use your communication skills, solve problems, a piece breaks or something falls off, or that you've done something really cool and you want to share it and show it. There's loads of opportunities for loads of different skills to be exercised.
Yeah, and I guess as well, those kind of fine motor skills as well, kind of putting things together, navigating
Absolutely.
shape and space and things like that is, it sounds like it's one of those activities where there are just so many benefits across so many different domains that a child can, and on the surface, I think because it's got the label therapy, you assume that it's going to be very much around kind of regulation and emotion, things like that. But actually, all of those practical areas of development as well sound like they could really be informed by that sort of activity too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. I think it's really interesting because at Play Included, we train loads of different professionals in how to deliver brick clubs. And we've actually changed the name to Brick by Brick program to try and take that stigma of therapy away from it.
Right.
And also with Lego trademarking issues, but everybody still knows it as Lego therapy. But depending on who we train, what their professional background is, different professionals see different applications of the methodology. So occupational therapists get really excited about fine motor skills. Speech and language therapists think, oh, but you've got like descriptive language and putting the piece on top versus underneath and next to. They get excited by the language. And the psychologists, I get excited by this. Oh, they're having a lovely little chat while they're building. Isn't that lovely socializing? And oh gosh, let's think about the feelings that you have when the model like falls apart when you try to put the piece on, or like managing conflicts or negotiations of what you're going to make. So there's a lot in the process of it. There's a huge amount, and really with maybe we'll talk later. We've been working with the Lego Foundation and their sort of concepts of learning through play. And really it's an activity where learning through play is just happening so naturally. So it's a meaningful activity. It's joyful. It's socially interactive. It's sort of their kids are actively engaged in doing it, and they're sort of problem solving and iterating all the time. So all the characteristics of learning through play are just there, and it just means children feel relaxed, they feel they're having fun. It's not heavy, it's not anxiety provoking, it's just kind of low-key group activity where children can really learn to their best ability.
Mm. How easy is it? I guess it's probably quite easy to move that across into the home for parents to continue that way of play and learning, because Lego is something that is really easily accessible. A lot of households will already have that in their homes. So is that kind of transference over what happens in the session and then to go home and do it at home with the parents as well? Is that easy to do?
Yes and no. I think that's a really great question, Lucy, because I think there's so much in sort of collaborative building that you can do as a family to look at family relationships and just building and playing together. But Lego therapy was really set up as a place where children can meet other children. So to try and make friends or develop peer relationships. And that's really important for the parents to not be there, because I know that if I'm there with my child, they maybe don't, they might talk to me instead, or they might want me to solve all the conflicts, or they might want me to resolve any challenges that come up. So it's important for that to be an out of home kind of play session. But in home, there's so much you can do with Lego building. I mean, I know that certainly loads of autistic children are really brilliant at Lego building. Just being able to admire and play with your child is fantastic. That's therapy enough, you know, for a parent and child at home, is just to play together and build together, maybe with siblings or as a whole family. But yeah, there are, you know, you can, you know, certainly sort of explore language concepts through the Lego building, take it in turns to do different jobs. You know, that's no problem at all.
Room. How if a child is non-verbal, how does that work in the process of Lego therapy?
I think it depends if the child really wants to be part of the group and wants to be there. I think Lego therapy really works best for children who don't also have an intellectual disability, or they can adapt it. But if they're non-verbal for, you know, because they're shy or quiet, there's lots of things you can do. You don't actually need any words to build Lego. You can look at the picture and put the pieces in the right place. You don't need to talk to communicate, but you can still be alongside somebody and building and being part of the group. Some speech and language therapists have used augmentative communication as well. So using, you know, iPads and PEC symbols to try and describe the bricks. But yeah, so I think it really depends on, you know, why the child is non-speaking, whether it's an anxiety thing, or certainly some children with situational mutism or selective mutism do really well just being involved and starting to say the colour of the bricks every now and again. I've certainly had lots of anecdotal conversations where people have said, well, they're just relaxed at school now, and and it's been a really key moment for them. So yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, you can adapt it.
I think there's a lot to be said, isn't there, for that kind of, as you say, that anecdotal progress that isn't necessarily statistics, tangible evidence that there's progress happening. But as parents who know their children, they can see those little glimmers of those progress that's happening in situations like that. So I guess if it is something that is more kind of anxiety based or, you know, situational mutism, to see those little glimmers of progress that the parents notice because they know their children is equally as beneficial, if not more, than those that you can kind of, the numbers that you can add up and put in a report at the end of it.
Yeah, totally. I think the stories that people tell are really powerful. And actually just, I think it was on Thursday last week, I was talking to a practitioner in the US who'd been piloting a brick club there and she told me that she told me some amazing outcomes that this child had been too anxious to attend any kind of group before. And she managed, because he loves Lego building, she managed to persuade him to give one session a try. And then he had a great time. And then he really enjoyed being part of the group, so much so that he felt then able to go and join a chess club outside of you know, a new group. So there's stories like that just are so meaningful for that family, but you just can't really measure it in research statistics particularly easily. And another child sort of, a parent sort of in tears, she said, because it was the first time, she said that all the other children in the club sort of cheered and were delighted when this child arrived at the session. They were just so happy. So that's the first time that had ever happened. Yeah.
That's why it's important to acknowledge those little moments as well that we hear about through when we're doing research, because it can quite easily, because of the need to make things tangible, make things kind of evidence-based, it's easy to forget those moments. But actually those moments built into the evidence that we have got really makes it a full picture, doesn't it? And I think that's really important to talk about. Thank you for sharing those stories. So tell us about Play Included. Is this the same as Brick by Brick? Is it separate? As what kind of things do you do under the Play Included name?
Yes, it's the same. So when I set up Bricks for Autism, we were lucky enough to be approached by the Lego Foundation, who are the philanthropic a philanthropic organisation who just own a bit of the Lego group. So they use their profits philanthropically to support different charitable purposes. So Play Included is a not-for-profit organisation, and we set up because we were Bricks for Autism. We changed our name to Play Included to be a bit more inclusive for not just autistic children. Yeah. So we set up because we noticed that there's lots of sort of misconceptions about Lego therapy out there. There's lots of different people doing different types of Lego therapy or different, like, it's a bit like Chinese whispers. And we just wanted a standardized, high quality source of information for professionals and parents. So that's what we've kind of done. We're focusing on delivering training for professionals in how to run the Brick by Brick program, so how to run Lego therapy. And we've got free activities for parents as well, who want to support their child with Lego at home. So we've got sort of both strands. But yeah, we wanted to sort of broaden out from just being for autistic children, because, you know, so many children benefit from this methodology. It's not just children with a diagnosis of autism. And you know, we've certainly recognised since COVID hit that there's a lot of children who may be more anxious in groups or needing a bit of extra support with social things like friendships, like communication, you know, problem solving, confidence in groups. So yeah, we've tried to broaden it out.
I think that's great, because I think if you think about it, not all autistic young people will necessarily have an anxiety around groups, and not all people who have an anxiety around groups may be autistic. So actually breaking down that barrier and saying we are here for everyone who has this particular struggle, because I guess it's more of a focus on what you would get out of that type of therapy rather than what you need to have to go into it.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's about, you know, as we've said, you know, there's children who may be struggling with language and communication. That could be for all sorts of reasons. Children who may find that they're a bit lonely or want some friends, and that you know, there might be all sorts of reasons for that, not just you know, a neurodivergent diagnosis. So that's really key.
In your opinion, nowadays our young people they're not really taught how to socialize. They're not really taught those skills, and obviously we had the pandemic, which, you know, threw a spanner in the works and created lots of problems in terms of that social development, especially for children who are particularly young over that period. So do you think that there is a trend now that our young people don't actually know how to do that and have the skills to do that, and that's why something like this is potentially really beneficial and useful for our young people to engage in, because it's a way of learning those skills?
I think so. I think there's I think there is, you know, depends, doesn't it? And every child is different, so it's hard to make sort of sweeping generalizations. But I do think that certainly teachers are saying that children coming into, certainly post-pandemic, coming into school, it was the social and emotional development that seemed to have been quite behind what used to be pre-pandemic. So it was a lot of social isolation, a lot of missed critical developmental periods to feel confident in a group and to develop those skills and to use the skills that children do have. And, you know, people maybe are online a bit more, perhaps, you know, face-to-face interactions are perhaps fewer. So it is actually really, really essential that children and young people, regardless of their diagnosis, have opportunities to play. You know, just even play. It doesn't matter about who with that. Just we need more play, and face-to-face play with other children is extremely important.
So is that a key part of this, being face-to-face? Is there any element of it that can be done at a distance online, or is it definitely 100% a face-to-face thing that needs to happen?
Yeah, it is usually face-to-face, and I think for that reason, because if you're building a Lego model with somebody else, it's actually quite hard to do it online and put the pieces on. But you can, you know, in COVID, people were very creative and came up with all sorts of ways of, you know, having the same kind of model or building and sharing and talking about what they've made.
Yeah.
It went some of the way. And we've been working with the Carnegie Mellon University Center for Transformational Play in Pittsburgh in the US, and they've they're very techy. So they've created this awesome technology. They're just testing it, so it's not available or anything, but it's just a sort of, research innovation where you can interact through an iPad. They've done something really clever where you can sort of build something and it's kind of mirrored through the iPad, and someone else can build it and do the kind of turn taking. Anyway, that's a nice innovation. But building and sharing, chatting online, that's a nice thing to do. But I do think, and I do want Brick clubs to be, quite in person and interactive, in the traditional sense rather than digitally.
I do think I agree. There's so much amazing digital innovation happening nowadays, and the progression of technology is incredible, and there are some amazing things coming out. But I do agree. I do think there still needs to be a really strong push on opportunities of that face-to-face interaction and looking for ways to really try and drive that forward as well, because as you say, that is something that we really missed out on, not just children but adults as well over that period. And definitely, I think there is a need to hone back into that and look for opportunities to get our young people back together and show them how to do it and that it's okay, and to kind of relieve some of that anxiety, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just to develop those skills, because they're really needed in life, and just to feel like you belong somewhere, that you've got a crowd of people who are like you, or that you enjoy doing something together, like a shared interest. It does breed friendships, and then you can meet up outside of the club and, do something else together. So it does lead to other social opportunities too, if you've got that sort of face-to-face relationship building. But it is really hard for some young people to do that and take that step. So I know that some Brick clubs have had really lovely outcomes where some children will just join online first to see what it's like, and just sort of join in via Zoom or something, or get to know the adult facilitating it via Zoom and talking about Lego, and then slowly joining in little by little in person, and that works quite well too.
Is there an age range that is kind of perfect for this type of work?
Do you know what? It really varies. I think 9 to 11 is like a golden age for me personally, in my sort of clinical experience. But Lego building is an interest that spans like the whole life. And I know people have been using the Brick by Brick program in care homes for the elderly, for example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And sort of using that as a way to build and socialize and keep the brain ticking over. So there's it's kind of ageless really in terms of the upper age limit. For younger children, you can use Duplo bricks, which are better for, easier fine motor. But you might just use simpler activities, or perhaps building with one other child rather than in a group of 3. So you can sort of adapt it and tweak it. But very young children, it's maybe toddlers, is not, I don't think you'd just be doing play, and that's fine.
Yeah. It'd be great to look at that intergenerational stance of having the young people in the care homes with the older generation, and having that collaborative approach, and see what effect that had on the intergenerational play there.
Yeah, totally. I would love to do some research on that, and people are using it in that way. And some people do take their primary school into the care home and like build and play and do brick by brick there. So that works really nicely. Yeah, amazing.
So can you tell us a little bit about this I-SOCIALISE control trial that you were part of? What was it about? What were some of the findings that came out of it? Was that impacting the work that you do now?
Yeah, so it was probably started before I started play included, actually, the research. What research is like, it takes ages. And it's at it was at Sheffield University and York University, sort of collaboration, and they got funding from the National Institute of Health Research to look at outcomes in schools, so mainstream schools. So it was a pragmatic randomised control trial. They randomly allocated, I think, 250 children roughly to either receive Lego therapy once a week or education as usual. And they did a very thorough very thorough analysis, very much looking at social development, and also mental health outcomes. And they found in the intention to treat analysis, there wasn't a significant difference in the outcomes. There was a sort of inkling, but then in the sort of per protocol analysis, which was including children who'd had at least 6 sessions of Lego therapy or more, there was a small statistically significant difference in favour of children who received Lego therapy. So looking at their improvement in their social development. So it's always really hard to measure these things and do it properly. And the, methodology was very strong, but, a few glitches here and there. As you know, with research, there's always something that makes you wonder, well, why this finding, not that finding? But they did find that it was very likely to be cost effective in terms of resources used, and improved health related quality of life for the children compared to educational support as usual, and also a very acceptable intervention to implement. So teachers and parents all thought it was very easy to put in place in schools and to run. So that was good. Yeah.
Brilliant. So how does Lego therapy specifically compare to other types of therapy and play therapy and that for children?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I think play therapy is quite a broader term, and I think play therapy is quite open-ended and probably even more child-led than Lego therapy. So it's very much perhaps more psychologically grounded, looking at sort of emotions and trying to understand the world from the child's perspective. And it's kind of a profession in and of itself. It's like a sort of, you can be an accredited play therapist. You can't be an accredited Lego therapist or anything like that. Lego, and I think that's one of the big reasons we sort of adapted the name to be Brick by Brick program. So this is a tool in a professional's toolbox. It is not like, this is psychotherapy, or this is play therapy, or this is cognitive behavior therapy. It's like a tool that an educator or a psychologist or speech and language therapist could implement in their professional practice.
Like a framework, I guess.
It's like a framework. It's a methodology. It's a framework. It's a skill that you might learn to use with children to support them. So I hope that kind of explains it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you making the distinction between changing the name, I think that's going to really help in terms of how people view it, because as we said right at the beginning, having that therapy word in there, it creates that initial thought around what it might be. And so I suppose by changing the name, you remove that initial thought process, and then people can actually get to know what it is based on the actual process.
I think so. And I think for children as well, it's nice to come to a club or a program, whereas coming to therapy perhaps has some sort of stigma that, there's something wrong with me and I need therapy, or they've got a problem, I need therapy. And I think the lovely thing about the Brick by Brick program and Lego clubs is that children, you can say to children, hey, I know you love Lego and you're really good at it. Would you like to come to Brick Club? So it's noticing their strengths rather than anything they might be struggling with, which is just a much nicer way of going about it.
Yeah. Have you noticed any misconceptions around the idea of the Lego play or interventions in that way?
Yeah, loads. There's loads. I think some of the main ones are that it has to be 3 children, and that is that. But actually, you could do it with a whole class or as many children. But you could, each person building in a little group. You could have everybody building a different model in a group of 3 or a group of 2, group of 1. You don't have to be in this group of 3 all the time. The other common misconception is that only one person can see the instructions, and it becomes like a barrier game, whereas actually everybody is allowed to look at the picture, use their visual strengths to find the pieces, put them in the right place, with the engineer kind of describing and helping, and everybody can kind of collaborate and have a bit of a joint focus. What's another one? That you have to stay in the same role for the whole entire session, swap loads of times each session. That's another misconception. So you get some children who are quite bored, who've been stuck doing the role they're not particularly keen on for like an hour, and they're like, oh, I get to do it next week. That's not as fun. And principally, it becomes too adult-led often. I see that It's often the adult saying, well, you need to be this role this week and you need to be this role, and then we'll swap after it, rather than getting the children to decide and work those things out for themselves. And that's a really important part of the process. It's key that the young people in the Brick Clubs decide what they're building, who they're building it with, when they're going to swap jobs, who's going to be what job first. Because there's loads of social interaction and discussions and negotiations happen around that, and that's where the kind of social development learning happens.
And I guess each role will provide different opportunities for different types of skills to be learned. So that would be for that to be moved about and shifted between each child during the session as well. Yeah. And as you say, giving them the autonomy to make those decisions and decide it within the team, there's a whole host of other skills that they're learning just in that moment of deciding who is playing what role. I think we get hung up, don't we, of looking at specific things that we can have as an outcome of an activity that we can tick off and say, yes, we've had those, and the typical things around the normal domains that we think about, your motor, your sensory and things like that. Whereas actually the second, I guess, this is just my thought on it, but the second that child enters that room, that's when their role starts, and that's when they start learning those skills. I guess even building up to entering that room, they're overcoming certain things because there's a reason why they want to partake in an activity like that. So even before entering that room, that's when the learning starts. That's when the changes in behaviours and how they perceive things and how they grow as an individual start before then. So I guess once the adult starts intervening, that's then putting a cap on what that child can get out of that session.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a big part that's missing from a lot of information online about Lego therapy. It becomes very activity focused, of like, oh, you build that in 3 roles, and you just miss completely a huge component of all of those interactions and all the process around that building, which is what the adult really needs to focus on. And we focus our training a lot on that. And about our kind of position and our role and our impact on the play and on the interactions between the I remember watching a video back from one of the I-SOCIALISE Brick Clubs, and the children were sort of really looking to the adults, sitting a little bit back in a group, waiting for the adults to tell them what to do. And then she went and said, oh, I'm going to go and get a snack and a drink. And as soon as she'd gone, and these are I think they might have been 13, 14-year-olds, as soon as she'd gone, they sat forward and they started chatting, they started building, they started interacting and having a great time. And as soon as she came back, they were like, oh, she's back.
Yeah.
And so totally getting in the way of any social stuff or enjoyment.
You know what? I had the same thing when I trained initially, did my undergraduate, and I was working in a preschool at the time. So I was very new to that way of working with children. And I've always been that kind of stand back and observe type of practitioner, because I don't want to get involved too early or, change the direction of play just by my presence. But I found it really hard because I felt like my managers would judge me as, oh, well, she's not doing anything. She's just standing around. And I really had to kind of explain my position and say, no, there's a reason why I'm not getting involved. And 9 times out of 10, if I went over and sat with children, they would stop doing what they were doing, and that creativity would just be curbed. And they would, as you say, look to you for what do I do next? How do I do this? Tell me. And that prescriptive way of learning and playing. And these were down at kind of 3, 4, 5 years old, and it's so impactful. I think I can't think of the top of my head, I think there's a name for it, isn't it? There's something effect of having
I don't know.
There's a name for it. Sure, there's a theory about it, but I can see how that would really affect this sort of situation, especially teenage ages, if they're feeling particularly reserved. And that's a great demonstration of that person leaving, and then straight away right, now we can talk.
Now we can build and talk and have a bit of fun. Now she's gone for a minute.
It's crazy.
Oh no,
Is
back to
it?
therapy. Oh, I've got to put the brick on. And like you do
Yeah,
see really boring brick clubs like that. And you're like, no, you just missed the point completely.
yeah. Do these happen? Are they just in schools? Are they in other places? Like, what role does the school play in this? And can it happen in like youth clubs and things like that?
Yeah, I think what we say at Play Included, because so many different types of professional use the Brick by Brick program, we say that it can be used in schools or health services or
Right.
youth centres, as long as it's in a recognised organisation where there's, adequate safeguarding policies, risk assessments. It's just about keeping children safe, and that
Mhm.
the adult running the club has, is working in a school or has a professional qualification, so that done safely and securely for the children and young people. That's what we ask for. But it's implemented in such a wide range of settings now. As I said, care homes for the elderly, schools, speech and language therapy centres, people run it perhaps in charitable settings as well, for children. Yeah, so it's a huge variety.
So you provide training for the adults around this. Is this something that is just for someone in a teaching role, or is it something that parents could say, actually, I want to be trained in this. Can I come and do your training?
No, currently we're hoping to develop a different training geared for
Okay.
parents. So at the moment, our training is very much geared for professionals, but our parent activities or our home activities are very much geared for parents, and they're really straightforward, easy to use. Don't want to overburden parents with loads of information. So those are what we've kind of created with parents in mind.
Okay.
But the training itself is very much geared to professionals.
Okay. Brilliant. And what I'll do is I'll put some links in that to your site and the resources underneath the episode so people can access it nice and easy. So you are a researcher as well as a clinician. So you kind of wear two hats on that front. How do you find balancing that scientific evidence in your role alongside the lived experiences? We touched upon this earlier, and that kind of anecdotal experience. Is that difficult to toe the line between the two?
Do you know what? I don't find it difficult. I'm doing one research study at the moment involved in with the Pedal Research Centre at Cambridge, looking at children's voices and children's views of brick clubs. So I feel like I am not really very strongly in the academic world at the moment, but I really love bridging the gap between academia and practice, and bringing, practice-based evidence up to kind of think about it carefully. And I think it's a really wonderful and important thing. That's not a very good word. It's just really important to bridge that gap, because so much academic research is wonderful, but it stays in the university, it gets stuck, and then nobody reads it in an academic paper that's really dense and hard to digest. So I really like to then bring those ideas into really hands-on practical training and experiences. So I love all of that. And then telling stories of what happens in brick clubs is just such a joy. It's just such a joy. So I do very much like both sides of the coin.
This is music to my ears. This is exactly what RECAP stands for and exactly what I'm trying to do in my mission. I agree. It's so important to get that amazing work that's happening, around the world by our academics, and get it in front of people that can actually take it and use it in practice, use it in the home, use it in the schools, use it in whatever healthcare facilities. But because these people are so busy, teachers, professionals, our parents, so busy, don't have the time to read, a 400-page report on something. Don't have the time to kind of try and think, right, well, that's the evidence. How do I translate that into my home?
Implement it in my where I am.
Exactly. And that, that's a skill in itself, and not everybody has the opportunity to develop that skill. So these kind of really easy, accessible ways of letting people know what the research is out there and then how they can translate it across, I'm all for. So that's brilliant to hear that you are a huge supporter of that as well.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. So How do you see the future of play-based interventions in child mental health? Where do you see that going in the future?
I don't know, honestly. I was thinking about this question when you sent it to me, and I've got hopes, but I don't know if my hopes will come true. I really hope that we all become much more playful in our approach to supporting children, both in their learning, but also with their mental health and in families at home. Play is it's just like a panacea. It's helpful for everything. It's a really it's how children learn best. It's how children process their experiences.
Yeah.
It's how people build relationships. So if we all play more and there was more play embedded, that would be brilliant. But what I see happening in a lot of schools and with the government's ideas is that that's maybe not happening as much, and schools are becoming very sort of behaviorally rigid. And I just think that's not where I would go with it. I think we need to be doing the opposite, actually, and looking at relationships and fun and enjoyment and play. And I think things would be much better. But maybe I'm a bit too naively optimistic.
To be optimistic. This is the only way to go forward. I completely agree. I think there definitely needs to be more play interwoven in everyone's life. And I actually saw a study that was happening. It's gone out of my mind now, but where they were looking at those sorts of play ways of learning, but at kind of higher education level, and students at that level. I think that's incredible, incorporating those sorts of that thought process of how we learn, and even as adults. And I'm totally behind the whole play thing, because I think, as you say, it's not just they're playing, the skill development, the process development, to enable people to do things. I'm actually doing some research at the moment with an autism charity, and one of the parents spoke about how they worked with their therapist on using toys to help their child process what was happening at school, and actually get those conversations happening in the school, in the home, so that they knew what was happening, the worries that the child had, because the child was nonverbal. But by doing it through play and actions, they were able to reach that child and give them some strategies to cope within that environment. So it's definitely got such a big part, I think, in just everyday life. And sadly, we don't see that replicated. The further along the school line you get, the less that opportunity for play is.
I think that's right. And one of the interesting things that came out of the I-SOCIALISE trial, and it wasn't like a really big thing, but there was a signal in the data that suggested that the Lego therapy, brick by brick, had better outcomes in the secondary school students rather than the primary school students.
Interesting.
And so that, it wasn't very clear, but it was a little signal. And one of the things I thought about that was, will they have even less chance to play than primary school age children? So the impact of that might be even higher for them. So yeah, I do agree that there's not enough playful learning, playful experiences available to young people.
What advice would you give to parents navigating an autism diagnosis with their child?
Oh gosh, now that's a hard question. I think it's a really hard process to navigate, actually, because the systems are very slow and disjointed. So it's really difficult to navigate those systems. So I would reach out to organisations like Pinpoint that maybe guide you through and help you through. I would definitely recommend talking to other families who have gone through or are going through a similar process. And I would say, support should come for a child regardless of the label, regardless of the diagnostic term used. Children should be supported based on their needs and what they need help with. So always advocate for your child for getting the help they need, whether or not they have a diagnostic label yet or not, or they're waiting on a waiting list somewhere. Help should be and should be available to you regardless. I think that's what I would say.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, I think sometimes we just get wrapped up. And I think I understand why we get wrapped up in the need to get that diagnosis and that label, because actually that opens a lot of doors for that, which is really frustrating. And we before we came on today, didn't we? And I said about my daughter not getting her diagnosis till she was 16. So we didn't have any of that support throughout any of her schooling, and she was home educated from 14 anyway. We didn't get any of that support because we didn't have that label, that diagnosis. So we didn't have any HCP or any of that. So there is definitely, it's hard, isn't it? There's a need to focus on getting that label to open those doors. But actually what you say is 100% right. It's focusing on what are their needs and how do we get help for those specific needs, regardless of, whether it's autistic or not. They have these needs, and these are the places that we can look for that support. So I guess it's just changing that mindset a little bit, is looking for help for the needs and having it as needs-led rather than kind of label-led. I don't know if that's a term it is now.
Yeah. I think that's it's hard to do and look after yourself in the process.
Yeah.
Don't forget about yourself.
Absolutely. We're always the last person we think of, aren't we? We're parents, we are advocating for our children, we're, standing up for them and creating this protective barrier around them. And then, when we've got a bit of time at the end of the day or not, that's when we think about, right, what do I need? How do I fill my cup? But it is really important to do it. It's not easy to do it, but it is really important to do it. I completely agree. So that's our parents. What about educators? Any educators listening? Are there any kind of small changes that they can make, as easy as tomorrow, that would help them better support any autistic individuals in their schools?
I think really trying to understand things from their perspective, right? Get to know them, get to know what they are really good at. I think we become very problem focused and negative. And why not shift that? Why not be the one person in that child's life that sees something good about them, that sees something that they can do really well, or that they're really that you like about them, and share that with them. And I think that can be just something really simple and easy for any child, but like particularly children who are struggling or have challenges. Often the narrative around them becomes very negative, and that's not fair. So we should always be the ones holding the positive and the good and the strengths.
The strengths-based approach is something that I've really come across a lot recently, and I'm a huge advocate for it, because I think, and rightly so, parents and practitioners spend a lot of time having to write about the challenges and having to write about what their child finds difficult and having to write about what their needs are and having to advocate for all of that kind of negative discourse around how their child is struggling, that we forget to actually look at what are they amazing at? What do they enjoy doing? What makes them them? What makes them unique? Why are they incredible? And it's really hard to do that when you have spent so long having to advocate for this is what they find really hard. So I think that's a great tip, because any young person going into school and seeing that their teacher is seeing them for the things that they can do and things that they're good at and how they can contribute to the class with the things that they can do and things like that. I think that's a really lovely sentiment to think about as anyone, educator, parent, any sort of professional working with a young person. Absolutely. So if anyone wants to get involved in what you're doing, find out more about Lego therapy, or just, pop in and say hi to you, how can they get in touch?
So you can drop us an email at hello@playincluded.com. Find us on our website, which is www.playincluded.com, or check us out on social media. We've got YouTube, we've got Instagram and Facebook. So find us on there.
Everywhere. I'll pop it all underneath with links and that to make it really, really easy. So as we wrap up, I'd like to give you the final word. Lots of our listeners are parents, educators, practitioners who do really care about supporting autistic children. So if you could leave them with an empowering message, something that you'd want them to carry away with them after listening today, what would it be?
I would say try and be comfortable and confident in your child's abilities and life. They are great. They are wonderful people. Neurodivergent people bring so much to the world. So never forget that. Always play and have fun and enjoy each other's company. That's maybe what I would say.
Amazing. Gina, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing the amazing work that you're doing, and I really look forward to following it more.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Lucy. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.